In the midst of ongoing global tensions over the Ukraine war, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy spoke over the phone on August 11th, focusing on the conflict's humanitarian toll and economic consequences. According to Ukrainian statements, Zelenskyy urged India to take a stronger role in limiting Russia's ability to fund its military campaign, particularly by cutting back on imports of Russian oil. The appeal came as India faces growing pressure from the West over its role as one of the largest buyers of Russian energy since the invasion began. Zelenskyy, in a message shared on X, said he briefed Modi on recent Russian strikes, including a deadly attack on a bus station in Zaporizhia that injured many civilians. He stressed that major economies with influence over Moscow must send clear signals to block its oil revenues, which Western governments say are a main source of funding for Russia's military operations. The United States and the European Union have repeatedly called on countries like India and China to reduce energy purchases from Russia, warning that these transactions undermine global sanctions. The timing of the call was notable, coming just ahead of a planned meeting in Alaska between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump. Washington has framed the summit as a chance to explore options for reducing hostilities, while New Delhi has cautiously welcomed the prospect of talks. However, Kyiv has expressed concern about being excluded from such high-level negotiations. Zelenskyy made it clear in his statement that any talks about Ukraine's future must include Ukraine, arguing the decisions made without Kyiv's participation would not lead to a stable peace. Complicating matters further, the discussion took place amid a new wave of trade tensions between India and the United States. On August 6th, President Trump signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, citing New Delhi's continued oil trade with Moscow. This doubled the total tariff burden to nearly 50%, putting India alongside Brazil as the highest taxed U.S. trading partners. Indian officials condemned the move as politically motivated, warning it could damage long-standing economic ties and disrupt trade flows worth billions of dollars annually. India's Ministry of External Affairs released its own account of the Modi-Zelenskyy conversation, emphasizing that Modi reaffirmed India's call for dialogue and diplomacy to end the conflict. He assured that India would extend all possible support to peace initiatives. Notably, the official statement did not mention Zelenskyy's request to limit Russian oil imports, a point that Ukrainian officials had highlighted publicly. Since February 2022, when Russia launched its full-scale invasion, India has significantly increased purchases of Russian crude oil. Research from the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, CREA, indicates that between December 2022 and June 2025, India bought roughly 38% of Russia's seaborne crude oil exports and nearly one-fifth of its coal exports. China remained Moscow's largest customer, taking about 47% of crude shipments and 44% of coal during the same period. These figures underline how energy trade has helped Russia withstand Western sanctions that sought to isolate its economy. Analysts say India's decision to buy Russian oil is driven mainly by steep discounts, which make it far cheaper than global market prices. New Delhi argues that these purchases are necessary to safeguard its energy security and protect millions of citizens from higher fuel costs. However, Washington and its allies maintain that such deals indirectly strengthen Russia's war effort by providing a steady flow of revenue. The BBC and Reuters have both reported that U.S. officials have quietly raised this issue in multiple rounds of talks with Indian diplomats. The geopolitical stakes for India are high. As a member of both the G20 and BRICS, New Delhi has tried to strike a balance between its historic ties with Moscow and its growing security and trade relations with Washington. Kyiv's calls for stronger action, combined with new U.S. tariffs, are testing this balancing act. Foreign policy experts, including those at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, warn that India's position will be harder to maintain if the war drags on and Western economic measures become more aggressive.